Welcome to Soul Circuit. I want to share today my story of the adoption process with our son Jonathan. And I'm going to start from the beginning. I had gotten married almost at age 30. I had already been in my career a bit. I was doing very well as far as I was concerned. I had a great education in engineering, and then I worked on my master's at night to get that while I was working full time. And I was on my way. And so I ended up marrying a man who I worked with, who I'd met at work. And shortly after we got married, we were relocated to Germany. One of the best experiences of my life, and that's a whole nother discussion. But today I wanted to talk about soul agreements and how they show up in our world. And as we were, starting out our married life in a foreign country, just having an amazing experience. We were both in the same company. Our careers were doing great. And we were supposed to come back to Charleston, which is where I've always felt I belonged. And unfortunately, they didn't have the positions for us, or at least that's what we thought at the time. And so we agreed to be relocated to the North American headquarters in Detroit, Michigan. Neither of us are from Michigan. We had no family there. So we were really starting from scratch. And we had agreed we wanted to at least have one child, if I wanted to have more than one. Because I grew up with siblings and I wanted the child to have siblings. So we started the process of trying to get pregnant. Well, that didn't quite work as we thought it would. It wasn't as easy as we thought it would be. And so we had to start finding all new doctors because I didn't have any in Michigan. And we found a fertility specialist in Ann Arbor. So we began that journey. And it was a 2-year grueling journey of many shots, many doctor visits, many attempts, many challenging experiences that had our connection become very clinical. And for anyone that's been through the fertility process, especially IVF, I did ZIFT once, IVF twice. It was a really I'll say soul-crushing experience. And through that, I would say I chose to withdraw. I began believing I wasn't a whole woman. I wasn't able to carry a child. I wasn't able to get pregnant. I wasn't able to create life as women are supposed to be able to. And so I started to withdraw, and that was my MO, right? It's what I had observed my mother do whenever she got upset. She would withdraw and go up to her room, and it was not necessarily a healthy way of navigating uncomfortableness or unhappiness or frustration, right? So, but that's what I saw growing up. So that's what I learned how to model. That's the conditioning that takes place. And so my poor now ex-husband didn't have a chance because I wasn't necessarily sharing what was going on. I didn't know how to share, and I wasn't equipped the way I am now to be open and honest and transparent and loving and kind and compassionate with myself first and foremost. I was very self-critical, very judgmental of my body, very frustrated with my body that it wasn't cooperating. And all of this was not helping the health and well-being and vitality of the possibility of getting pregnant. So, of course, it didn't work. And they never could determine why it didn't work. And I had massive doses of fertility treatments. And they did everything they could, the specialist, right? And clearly it was not meant to be. So as we got to the third IVF, the end of it, as it was not looking like it was working so well, and we decided to start the adoption process. And we both, my ex-husband and I, were both open to it because we had both been adopted ourselves, right? We both were adopted and had, relatively okay upbringings. and we can judge those all we want, but actually they were great upbringings for both of us. And so we were open to adoption. That was always, an option for us. And we're so blessed and glad we went that path. I didn't understand soul contracts and soul agreements and the soul journey back then. It's been 26 years now. And I now can see it for how beautifully orchestrated it was. Those IVF treatments were not meant to work so that I could be connected in the way I ended up being connected with my son, Jonathan, because we have soul agreements. And my now ex-husband and I, Jonathan's dad and I, have soul agreements with his birth parents. So we all agreed to this orchestrated event prior to coming into this lifetime. We didn't know it at the time, and I can honestly connect the dots much better now, obviously. But what I wanted to share as it relates to soul agreements is that when we went through the adoption process, we weren't able to fully connect and match with potential birth mothers. So we were working with an agency in Michigan, and they would have you put together a one-pager and it was just kind of a highlights reel of your philosophy on children, your philosophy on education, your approach to, how you two as a couple were going to be parents and raise a child. And then the birth mothers would come in and flip through this book. And this is back in 1998, 99. And basically based on one picture of you and this one pager kind of resume of you as a couple, select whether you were the one they would choose to be the parents for their child they were choosing adoption for. So it seems very, very arbitrary, and yet it's not. It's perfectly divinely orchestrated that birth mother flipped through the pages of all the potential parents waiting to be, families waiting to be, and selected us. And so our particular situation, the birth mother was 2 weeks away from the due date. She had not shared that she was pregnant with her family. She was doing it on her own. She was very strong, very independent. The birth father was in Ireland. It was a long distance situation. And she was in denial until almost the very end, is how I would see it. And so she luckily reached out to the agency. We connected 2 weeks from the birth, and all of a sudden we're going to be parents in 2 weeks. So my husband at the time and I were scrambling, right? We're like, oh my gosh, okay, let's go. We didn't have the 9-month period. We had 2 weeks. So we start getting everything in place to at least be able to bring this child home and have it be okay to get started. And, we're 30, I was I was mid-30s actually. I was 37, 36 at the time, turning 37. And my husband at the time was just over 40. So we were mature enough to get ready for this. And we're scrambling though. We're new first-time parents, and it doesn't come with an instruction manual for all of you that are parents. You know that. So long story short, gets close to the birth, and the birth mother disappears. The birth father had come over to be with her for the birth and this process of choosing adoption, and they disappear. It's 2 days before due date. So my husband at the time, he and I were basically devastated. We had given up. We had said, okay, it's not going to happen. They changed their mind. And it was this unbelievable, unfathomable feeling of sadness. And the day before our son ends up being born, they reappear. And it's back on. And so we were scheduled to meet the morning of May 5th for breakfast. The birth mother, birth father, and my husband at the time and I. And the night before, her water breaks. And we go pick her up, get her to the hospital. We're there overnight. Our son's born the next morning. And we got to stay there with him a day because she had not gotten prenatal care, so he needed a little extra help there in the beginning. But we were able to take him home a day later, and it was the most unbelievably smooth process. The birth mother and birth father came back the next morning to say goodbye. I knew she had chosen us when she asked if she could hold him. She asked my permission, can I hold him? And I knew then that she was, in this place of fully choosing us. And we were gratefully accepting this amazing gift of a child. And so we agreed, this is the sole agreement we made with them, for an ongoing connection, to give her every year letters for the next 18 years with pictures to show the progress and joy and love that this child would experience. And so the incredible joy of having soul agreements with people you don't even know come into your life in such a profound way. For us, it was the birth parents of our son. And I'm so grateful. Every year I would write the letter and thank her for the gift that she had given us and chosen us to be the beautiful parents and the loving parents and the joyful parents of this amazing soul that we named Jonathan. Thank you for being here with me on Soul Circuit today. Stay radiant. Stay plugged in.